this could potentially be a slightly contentious one. So we're going to talk now about Kayshon Boutte. So I think maybe the single most impressive game of any wide receiver in this entire class was his rookie year against Ole Miss. I seem to talk about it a lot. 5-star recruit, 6 foot, 190 pounds. Broke out in a massive way that freshman year. Was producing in his sophomore year before injuries seemed to sidetrack him and derail him slightly. We can probably forget about his junior season. It was, is he coming back to LSU? Is he not? New head coach. Then there's all sorts of red flags about what's going on and the reason why he had to leave LSU. Probably less said about those, the better. But what do you think of Boutte? Are you a fan?
He is the most complicated, difficult eval I've found in this draft class so far. I feel like, I don't know what to think of him. I've watched games from each of the last 3 seasons. You can see exactly why this time last year he'd been hyped up as a first-round prospect. But I put out a tweet the other day and said, if there's one guy this year who's going to do that, fall from being a first-rounder to being a day 3 guy when it comes to the draft, it could be Boutte this year. Starting with what I like, I guess. He's got good size. He's 6 foot, I think, 205. That's again your kind of traditional NFL boundary receiver size. He plays big as well. He looks and feels quite like a stocky build. He's surprisingly good after the catch. I think you look at him and you wouldn't maybe think he's going to be like that, but like that for me is what stood out about his game. He's just, you get him on the move underneath. There was I think it was in the game against Georgia in the SEC championship this year, and he took one for 60 yards, I think it was. And it's just like, you get the ball in his hands. He's got great long speed. He's like your classic bigger, fast guy where he's a bit of a long strider. It can take him a little while to really kind of hit that top gear. But once he gets there, he can blaze past you. That's what I like. The concerns, there's the off-field stuff which you kind of touched on there, which, yeah, I'm not going to dive into it. If people want to Google it, then Google it. It's probably one of the craziest off-field stories that you'll find about a draft prospect, at least one of the craziest ones I've ever come across. The on-field one that is the worry is the injuries. So he had right ankle injury last year. Now, if you were to have read kind of any scouting reports on Boutte, last summer, they'd all be talking about his explosiveness, and you can see it, on tape. The problem is when he came back this year, he's got the long speed still. I don't see the twitch. I don't see that kind of short area explosiveness. Now, that might just be a rehab thing. We've seen it before with guys when they come back from an injury and, they don't look quite the same, but then give them another year and they're back to their best. So that's where it's difficult. Are we seeing the Boutte in 2022 that we're going to get in the NFL, or are we seeing a maybe not quite healthy player? For fantasy, it's all going to come down to his draft capital. Like the NFL, if they're taking this guy on day 3, then that's a completely different story to if he's a top 50 pick. I think teams will be all over the place on him as well. Some teams will have him off their board for injury concerns. Some teams will have him off the board for character concerns. But, it is also worth saying, I didn't like how he was used this year. Like if you watch LSU this year, it was like stop routes, hitches, comebacks. And it's like, you can see it on the screen here. This is a guy who's great on the move. Why, every time he's getting the ball, are you getting him the ball when he's stopped? Yeah. Like, put him on, get him on slants, get him on, jet sweeps, that kind of thing. Get him on the move, get him attacking defenders in space, and you'll have plenty of success. So, there's the tools, but there's the concerns.
Yeah, I guess you could say that I'm a Boutte fanboy, a Boutte truther, whatever you want to call it. I've loved him since his freshman year, and I've been really excited for him to come out. I think, for me, he's an elite athlete. He's a former track star. He ticks the route running ability. I don't think he's the same technician of someone like an Addison, but I think that he has more wiggle. Perhaps he's a better athlete than Addison, so he doesn't need to be that level of technician. I think that for me, I think that his best attribute is that play after the catch with the ball in hands. You said that he was good. I think he's elite, and I think that'll translate to next level. And I think that whilst I've said that I think Addison is smaller and can play outside, I know Boutte could play outside, but I think he could be dynamite as a kind of a speed slot. I'd love to see him almost like a Christian Kirk plus, in that I think you said there about using him on the move, getting the ball in his hands, using him in space. That's when Christian Kirk has been at his best and done well in terms of production levels. When he's tried to be pigeonholed and used on those intermediate routes where it's, hitches and comebacks and that sort of thing, that's where he struggled. And I think that in the right system, in the right offense, I think Boutte, we could be looking back in a year and saying, should we have been taking this guy in 102, 103? We could also be looking back in a year and he could have completely flamed out the NFL, because there are some serious concerns there. But for me, I'm never going to shy away from a wide receiver being a bit of a diva. Let's be honest, some of the greatest receivers ever have had that little bit of diva in them. And I don't necessarily see that as a red flag. I think that for me, he ticks 3 massive boxes in terms of the athleticism, the route running ability, and the yards after the catch. So, yeah, I really like him a big bit. I think if he doesn't get probably top 50 draft capital, I'm going to be concerned. I think if he starts falling into that back end of the second, early third round, or you've talked it into existence in terms of that day 3 capital, that's got me paranoid, because I've thought for sure he was going to be a potential first round pick. So yeah, I'm concerned if he gets to that point. But I think that, like, if he ends up on the Chargers in round 2, he's going to come flying up my board.
I think the thing to say on that, if you've seen Dane Brugler at The Athletic, who is probably the best in the business at draft analysis, he fell out of his top 100 that he released the other day, which is kind of where I was starting to go, okay, maybe there is something to this. But the important thing is, like is always the case with the draft, it only takes one team to fall in love with him. It only takes one team to fall in love with him, spend a pick, take that risk, and then you've got a guy who's taken early on. So
let's just hope that everybody watches his 2021 and 2020 film rather than his 2022 film.